Welcome everyone to today's webinar from the Open Group, which is one of a program of webinars that the Open Group is bringing over the coming months. Before I hand over to our presenters today, who are Mike Walker of Microsoft and Steve Philp from the Open Group, I would like to go over a few housekeeping issues to keep the event moving forward smoothly. We would encourage you to submit questions during this event. This is one of the major objectives of bringing these webinars to you. There are two ways that you can submit a question during the event. One is to write it in the text chat facility. The other, and probably the more effective way, is to write it in the text QA facility. If you submit a question, I ask you to address your questions to all participants. That way everyone gets to see the questions that are being submitted. We will handle the questions at the end of the presentation within the hour. You'll also just know that this presentation is being recorded, so that's a full audio and visual recording, and will be available from tomorrow. You will get an email with the appropriate URL so you can access that recording. If you do have to leave the event early or do experience any local technical difficulties, then the whole call will be available to review in the future. With that done, I hand over to start the presentation.
Thank you, Simon, and welcome everyone to our webinar, Enterprise Architecture Certifications Distilled. I'm Steve Philp. I'm the Marketing Director for Professional Certification at the Open Group. And this is our agenda for this afternoon. I'm going to start off with a few minutes on what the Open Group are doing with their certification programs. Then I'll over to Mike from Microsoft, who's going to go through the various EA certifications that are available and which ones you might want to follow. Mike has actually been through OpenEA to the distinguished level, so he knows all about our programs. And then we'll finish off with a question and answer session. We've got also to join Mike and myself, James Durave, who's the VP of Certification at the Open Group. So, just where we've got two different types of people certification programs at the Open Group. We have a method or knowledge-based programs under TOGAF and Archimate, which typically involve going on a training course and passing a test. And our skills and experience-based programs, so that's the OpenCA and the OpenCITS. So one for architects, which was formerly known as ITAC, and one specialist formerly known as ITSC, and they're about completing application packages and being interviewed by your peers about your skills and competencies. We'll get some more detail as we go on. So we often talk about skill experience programs in certification for T-shaped people. And what we mean by that is a lot of product certifications look at very specific roles and skills. There's things like OpenCA and OpenCITS to demonstrate not only your specific skills, but also generic skills or a broad range of skills in things like people, project management, and business skills. So that's what we mean by the T-shaped people approach. Just some background on where we are with some of the programs. TOGAF 9 certification was introduced in February 2009, and we've got 13,482 people gone through, and every quarter the numbers go up quite significantly. Quite a few people got TOGAF 8 certification. In terms of the spread of certifications, Europe tends to have the most, and that's countries like the UK, Netherlands, France, Scandinavian countries, and we have North America, mainly from the US, but also some from Canada, Africa, which is mainly South Africa, and Australia. There's a lot of people in Australia done TOGAF, and increasingly in Asia, people in India do TOGAF. For our other space certification, Archimate, it was released in January 2012 at launched at our San Francisco conference, And it's, for those of you who don't know about Archimate, it's an independent modelling language for enterprise architecture. The purpose of the certification is to provide the validation that the people know about the terminology and the structure and the concepts. It's early days on that one. So far there's about 85 people certified. Again, very popular certification area. OTA, we have almost 3,500 certified individuals now from a range of companies. They come to us either directly through our direct program or through our accredited certification partner program. So we have some partners such as IBM, HP, Raytheon, CA, who run their own programs which we accredit, and members of those organisations can become part of the OTA program. So we have a wide range of corporate users, typically financial, Nationwide, ING, Intel, and a number of organisations running pilot programs, so UPS and ATT, Tata, LG, sorry. It's a few big benefits of the program. We obviously think it's the best program for the industry. It's objective, repeatable, reliable, peer-reviewed, and vendor-neutral. So all organisations use it for selecting individuals, and it provides them with a clear path to professional development. Individuals also can take advantage of it and look for salary prospects. So we've also broadened this program out a little bit recently. We've just had a meeting where the business architecture conforming requirements have been approved, and they'll be through the process and become part of the program in Q3 2012. So that's a new stream that's coming out, and I'm sure we're doing some more webinars around that when it's launched. So in terms of awareness of the programs, demand through RFPs and especially recruitment advertising. I've got a list of companies there, mainly companies, that's because that's where I'm based, but I've seen advertisements with OpenSea asked for as a preference these jobs. And there are other organisations also evaluating our programs, typically people like Accenture, Deloitte, Ernst & Young, and also Microsoft. On this side, we have about 2,500 people. Seen typically as organisations are using this particular certification as part of the framework towards in their own professions. SIPs, for example, have used this specialist program to their brand as an employer, engage with their employees. They'll be seen as the best organisation to work for, and they've seen some immediate benefits in terms of the number of contracted days that they've had. There's a case study on our website that you might want to have a look at, and also a webinar. We'll tell you a lot more about the special program and how it's been used. Themes in the program. We have different client focus areas in terms of services, sales, support, and training, and then on this there's 17 different areas where you can focus your skills. The popular ones tend to be the ones at the top, actually: the business analysis, application development, and application implementation. But we're also introducing some new streams this year. So security being one. Built into this some recognition for existing certification holders, so you can list out some of the requirements, but all of these requirements now in the updated document which is available on our website. It was released in the first quarter. So we're about to introduce a service management stream for this list area, and there's 3 different aspects to that: consultancy, delivery, and operations. Very popular area, a lot of interest in it, and so hopefully that will be launching in the second half of this year. We've also mapped this to the competence framework. On that, we're also doing work to map our programs to other things such as Sophia. And recently the British Computer Society, BCS as they're known now, recognised the fact that if individuals hold our certifications at level 2 or above, they can now achieve chartered IT professional status simply by completing a breadth of knowledge test. So for us, it's external validation of our programs, and like I said, it proves that they're equivalent to Sophia level 5, which is something that we're also working on, mapping our programs to other frameworks. So I think that's pretty much all. Just want to give you an idea of what we're doing, and I'm going to hand over to Mike now, who's going to talk to you about EA certifications.
Thank you, Steve. First, I want to say thank you to the Open Group for giving me this opportunity to talk to all of you today. It's really an aggregation or a consolidation of a series of articles that I've written around the enterprise architecture certification space. I myself confused in the wide variety of different certifications out there, and so what I did was I sort of documented my experience through the process and recapped it for everyone publicly via my blog, so that you learn some of the lessons that I learned through the process. Here, though, presentation style, I want to give you an interesting anecdote. Really, you're going to see kind of a newer type of design, something that Microsoft's invested in, but I think this principle is directly applicable to all of us in the architectural world. And style is called Metro. And with this style, it takes a modernist type of style around simplicity. Okay? And it really brings principles from the early to mid-20s in the 1900s from Germany, from the School of Architecture. So you're going to see lots of really crisp, simple design elements, something that us as enterprise architects are striving to do more and more of, to make our work more meaningful, crisp, and be able to communicate it well. But also see, and unfortunately with WebEx it kills the typography, but the style with the fonts as well comes from the 20s, around a lot of the Swiss-inspired design. And then also marrying that with the simplicity around our transportation systems. And so hopefully this presentation style resonates with you, but I thought it was very applicable to convert into this format of this specific audience, because we tend to go back to the real world or the traditional architectural world for inspiration on the things that we do. So just an interesting anecdote on the style. Me, very quickly, the things you should know about me is that I'm a practitioner. I actively engage with customers. I don't sit in an ivory tower and pontificate necessarily, even though that's a great thing to do intellectually, but unfortunately that doesn't add much value by just doing that. So I engage primarily in strategic engagements, talking to CEOs, CTOs, chief architects, etc. But also very active in the architecture community as well, with the standard bodies, Open Group being one of them, in the architecture forum for Revit next version of TOGAF, etc. But also, as had mentioned, I'm certified through the OpenCA process, so hopefully able to add a little bit of credibility here as well through that certification. So forward, and what we want to talk about is a few things. Talk about review, why are we having this conversation, why is it important to you, and what are you going to get out of this? Second, we're going to get an understanding of the certification landscape. When I talked earlier, I said that it was very confusing. There's lots of different certifications out there. What I want to do is I want to propose a mental frame on how we should think about certifications. I'll go in an inch deep. I'm not going to go too deep because Steve did a fairly good job covering the breadth, but I want to show how this certification landscape applies to the open group set of certifications. And then we have a call for action where we have links to resources, etc. The comes here that I want you guys to think about is, provide a frame that you guys can use to become more credible with either your customers, if you're in a consultant type of profession, or with your business, if you're within a corporation. And so by understanding the specific certifications that apply to you and your role, we can make you more credible. And hopefully provide a common vocabulary on how to frame a conversation with your partners or your customers. And so understanding the landscape, what we can do is we can better articulate things mean. So if we say a skills-based certification versus a competency-based certification, we understand what that means. But one of the key benefits is that you validate it. Is that for these certifications, you're evaluated by your peers in the industry. And so there's a huge benefit through going through the certification process once you actually identify the one that is most meaningful or set of ones that are most meaningful for you. And it will amplify you. For example, all certifications do this, but with the open group process, you're actually listed on a website where you're very visible in the industry. What I hope that you get out of this is that in order to chaos, that it gives you a starting point to navigate what certifications you want to get and do that mental frame. So I did my research. I went back and I said, okay, what benefit my career the most? If I'm looking at my personal brand, what I want to understand is who's certified and what certifications, what are the market drivers, what's the leader in the industry. And I was very surprised that the Open Group's TOGAF framework was actually a leader in what enterprise architects prefer. Now, this is a recent statistic from LinkedIn, which was an open discussion within the enterprise architecture. But what it is that there is an overwhelming demand for this. A distant second is a mixture, which oftentimes includes TOGAF in some form, which is your pragmatic enterprise architecture frameworks of the world that left certain aspects of TOGAF. And then drops down from there to Gartner and to Zachman. I think that Steve highlighted on a little bit is that 50% of the jobs in the UK require TOGAF in some shape or form. We're starting to notice that here in the US as well. So when we get RFPs for services engagements, we're going to see this as well. And it may be TOGAF or it may just be they're looking for some sort of certification period. And you heard from Steve about the number of certifications. Also, a recent Gartner study said that there's 37% of frameworks are hybrid. Now, why is this an important statistic? It's important because one certification may do it for us. That we have to diversify. And what we'll talk about a little bit later is where do you diversify? There's certain areas where you may not want to, and it may be detrimental, but in others, it's beneficial. So we'll talk about that more and what that means to you and your career. So I was walking through this process. I found myself confused. I found myself overwhelmed, and I wasn't angry, but I was frustrated over missed expectations. challenge is that he doesn't have a good mental frame for how to think about this. And so, I was walking through this process, and I was, based on my own experience, knowing the different certifications, pulling from the web a listing and doing searches, etc. I pulled the list and I said, there has to be a better way of going about this. And so that was really the genesis behind creating this mental frame on how to think about certification. And so my goals for this was to really make something really, really easy to use and to navigate. If I'm in an international role, it has to be universal. So it has to apply not only to the U.S., where I'm based, but it also has to apply in Europe or Pacific, etc. So that bit was very important. It helped me directionally figure out a path I wanted to go. So I've got very specific career goals, so I need to make sure that this mental frame supports that. And lastly, that it provides a pathway for growth, both from a skills perspective, but also from experience or competency-based perspective. So I ended on, and this is a version 1, and this will evolve over time, and I'll publish this more and more as time progresses. But I break it down to 4 core areas on how to classify the enterprise architecture certification landscape. It's important when you look at the chart that's tailored for enterprise architecture specifically, and not any other variation of domain architecture such as security architecture or business architecture as specific disciplines, focused on enterprise architecture as a whole. So I'll get into these 4 core areas. The first is competency-based certifications. Next, industry specialized certifications, foundational certifications, and the supporting certifications and learnings that complement the rest. And what they mean is the competency-based, or as Steve said, experience-based, which are the same vocabulary. They're really focused on your experience, valuing that experience that you have. So look at it from an interrogative perspective, this is addressing how. It's valuing that you can demonstrate how to be an architect. Skipping the industry specialized for a second, and foundational certifications are more skills-based. So this is what you know. It be the skills. You can answer a multiple choice question and get these questions right, but it doesn't say you know how to do it necessarily, that you have the scar on your back from going through this time and time again with customers or your business partners. Industry specialized certifications, these are really driven from a specific industry vertical area or a concrete set of business concerns. Great examples of this is the federal government. So in the public sector world, you've got ODAF, you've got FIF, TIF, etc. There's many of them out there, and really what these frameworks can be used for is if you're in the government sector, this would be very beneficial for you to lift up. But if you're in the commercial sector and you're working in banking, as an example, it may not be as applicable to you because it is predetermined by a set of business drivers. And then we have our supporting certifications and learning, and this is really specialized training, learning. Some of them aren't even certification. Some are academic in nature, so it's accredited. Still complementary and interrelated to this whole landscape on how you can think about it. What's interesting about that last category of supporting certifications and learnings is that so far these other pillars don't really talk about what I would call the aspiring architect. If you're an architect today, what do I do to become an architect? These support certifications and learnings really help provide a pathway pathway. So a great example there would be a program out of Penn State University. Essentially created a program for enterprise architecture where you can go to become an enterprise architect. And so based on those broad categories, I came up with this model. And so, called Enterprise Architect Certification Reference Guide. At presentation, I saw a question on here on the Q&A if the presentation will be available. It'll be available. We'll put PDF so we have all the fidelity of the graphics and fonts, etc., that are available, but also provide a lot of links. I'll update this reference guide on my blog as well, so you guys get a refresh of the specific guide, not just a set of images. So again, that first pillar, the competency-based certifications, there's really only one that stands out for enterprise architecture. That may apply for more detailed technical or solution architecture, but for enterprise architecture, OpenDA is really the only game in town. And so what's on is validating and proving that you know how to do enterprise architecture. Specialized certification, we mentioned this a little bit. Those include Thief, TIEF, DODAF, MODAF. There's many others out there that are specialized, but these are some examples on what to expect in this category. A lot about those since they are highly specialized. National certifications, these are really here to help you on your journey of being a enterprise architect. They're there to help you to provide the essential skills to your virtual toolbox to help you do your job better. So for example, you can use Zachman as a great ontology or data model to show a level of completeness of your architectural work, as an example. This is very applicable in certain industries as well. And so if you're a consultant to many customers, that may be something you want to learn. But if in a company that hasn't standardized on it, maybe you don't. TOGAF is a great general purpose architectural framework and method. And so we know that there is a large majority of shops that use it, and then though don't, there's a large majority that use it in some way as a hybrid framework. Now, just learning TOGAF doesn't mean you're a good architect. You know what things to do are. You know logically the thought process, but it's experience on how to go about trade-off analysis. How do I deal with people, the human dynamics side of the house? Really where we get in back to the competency-based certifications. What's interesting about this is that if we put a lens over this around the relationships between these boxes, what you would see is there's a lot of interconnectedness here. OpenCV actually a mandate that you use a specific architectural framework, and it doesn't have to be TOGAF. It can be any other framework. It could be a specific-driven one that's approved. Microsoft has one that's approved as well. So the foundational certifications are very important to lead to your competency-based certification. You can trade-off analysis. There's skills and certification that you can get there. Archimate is a great certification because it helps us articulate our models, our grants to our customers. And until recently, there hasn't been something geared for the enterprise architecture community. UML has done a great job at the developer community and code generation, but not as well in the architectural world. Other organizations like ISA, the International Association of Software Architects, which provides some foundational skills as well for solution architecture, infrastructure architecture, etc. The specific areas very deeply. And so you'll see some guidance there. But again, not competency-based. And then ITS, Steve mentioned as well as the specific specialists. And so these will do, they'll provide the essential skills you need to become an enterprise architect, but in and of themselves, they won't make you an enterprise architect. You have to have the experience through learning and engagements. Now, regarding certifications and learnings here on the right-hand side in the green, you'll see of academic organizations. I mentioned Penn State University. They've got a great program. They're I think, really setting a standard for how to do this in academia. They're FO organization, which is a federated group of architectural parties involved in the community. Getting all the folks together, the Open Group has been involved in that process. The Enterprise Architecture Center for Excellence, et cetera. Lots of organizations are a part of that are forming a curriculum for that specific program. What's interesting about that is you see a lot of the Open Group-based skill framework and certification processes being applied to Penn State as well. And once you do that specific program, you actually become certified through the Open Group. That's necessarily giving you an Open CA or a TOGA certification. It's giving a specialized one, but it is one that is provided based on the experience and the competencies of the members of the Open Group. And got the applied tailored, and this is really where it comes into, my role as a vendor. So at Microsoft, we have our own specific methodology for helping customers. And our specific methodology that I can't necessarily talk about anybody else's, the realization framework. And so what we focus on is we focus on, first focus on the value that we want to generate for customers. And we will end these specifics areas. So we'll take the best, we'll take the best from TOGAF, we'll take the best from here, we'll take the best from there. Bring it together to have something extremely tailored for what our customers want that's bundled into an offer. You see that at Accenture, IBM, Oracle, Cisco, et cetera. The list goes on. The reason why this is important to understand in this landscape is because these certifications are out there, and it's important to note that each one of these boxes on the screen has a specific outcome tied to it. It's important to understand what those outcomes, so you can reverse engineer the outcome to map back to you to say, is that what I want? So a couple example of that is those that are listed in the competency-based certifications really validate your architectural skills. So if you, as an enterprise architect, want to be viewed as credible in the industry, and that tied to your name, then a competency-based certification it would be very good for you. For specialized certifications, this is really going to help you be credible in specific industries. So to go out to the U.S. federal government, I want to pick and learn and maybe even certify in DoD architectural framework or the Federal Enterprise Architecture Framework, and really learn those in a deep way so that I could speak the business language of my customer. The certifications are to tune your architectural skills. They're to help you, give you more options, because we know that there's not a silver bullet, and none of these certifications alone is going to solve all your problems. So it's where, when I mentioned about the diversification, this is where you really want to diversify, and you try to spread your wings more there. So maybe you want to learn some things from Zachman. Maybe you want to go to an ISA foundational course. Maybe you want to go here or there to build that virtual catalog of skills in your portfolio so that it increases your competency. And the outcome with the supporting certifications and learning is really to provide that aspiring architect, it provides a pathway. But provides that supplemental learning that's accredited through academia. So there's benefit there as well. Now, example of, I mentioned that I would publish this information. This is an example of one of the sheets that you would see within the presentation. And so this is the OpenCA overview. And what you see here is that a brief overview of what OpenCA is, the specific process that you would need to go through to become certified, and specific career ladder and resources. And we're going to go through this in a little bit more detail later. I want to give you an idea if the overall actual certification reference guide, if you double-click on competency-based certification, specifically OpenCA, you do this. How I'm thinking about this on how to classify certifications, how we describe it, etc. When we look specifically at the Open Group, what's unique about the Open Group is that they've got broad coverage. And so not only are they in the competency-based camp, but also in the skills camp as well. And with the developments with British Computer Society and then SOPHIA, which is a skills framework, similar to like here in the U.S., we have the U.S. Department of Labor has standardized on a set of skills. The British government has as well. And what's seen is you're seeing that the Open Group is starting to really diversify not only into competencies and skills, but also the competency-based frameworks and skills frameworks out in the industry and academia, and providing validation of those programs. It's a purpose. So when you look here on the right-hand side, you see 4 boxes in somewhat of a gradient fashion. You have OpenCA, CITS, TOGAF, and Archimate. These are fit for purpose for what enterprise architects need. So there's not a whole lot of bleed over and overlap in these certifications. So it makes it very nice, and it makes it very easy for enterprise architects to pick which path or multiple paths they want to go on. And the broad ecosystem of support for these certifications. Now, OpenCA is a little bit of a different creature, but for TOGAF and Archimate, where you can really have a broad partner ecosystem, a breadth of partners out there that can help you with certification, with education, etc. So it makes it very nice. Now within CA, just about that, we have 3 levels: certified, master, and distinguished. And really, the certified IT architect is a great starting point, and that's where we see a lot of people land. But also, which I think is the largest of all 3 of certifications. We'll have to verify that here later, but that's the case. Then we start to see really the coalescing of the business side of architecture and the solution architecture side really come together. Coming to distinguished certified IT architect, this is where it really branches into 3 different paths. And how I look at it is you've got the chief architect, which is really about the strategic and broad business impact. So you look at the criteria within that specific pillar. There's a business orientation there. The questions you'll be asked will be all oriented. When I did my certification, it really wasn't talked about a whole lot. A lot of it was your soft skills, your negotiation, EQ, skills, and your business acumen. The enterprise architect track within level 3, it's really focused on saying, are you an expert in architecture? And so, unlike the chief architect, which is more about running an enterprise architectural organization, being liaison or part of the business, the architect is more of on the ground, guy or gal that is executing and building architectures day in, day out. The professional leader is one that represents the architect profession. So out of three, there's a minority here in the profession leader because it is so specialized. It's for organizations like you saw Steve mentioned of the corporate partners that are wanting to create OpenCA programs within their companies and be accredited. We have a similar thing here at Microsoft. IBM does as well. We have people that are essentially representing the architectural community and focus on certifications, focus on what are the right things to learn, not learn, etc. And so those type of people fit really, really well into that profession leader category. And the OPA process, as I've gone through it, it's extremely rigorous. However, it's a very fair process. And there is not really any room for personal bias or conflict of interest. As someone that has gone through, I had a respect for the level of professionalism of the program. But then when I was elected as a board member, another level of respect that as a board member, I don't have any authority to have any sort of bias based on my experience or my opinion towards a specific architect. It's really about there's a set of criteria that you must meet. Did you meet or not? And so it's good to have a lot of the subjectivity out of that process because then everyone is treated as equal and it's a very fair process. At a very, very high level due to time on this specific slide, but also the other slides. You see the information link here at the bottom for this specific slide because there's 5-page just on this topic here. I encourage you to read it if you're interested, and then provide other links at the end. I'm going to give you guys a high level on kind of how I see OpenCA. So lastly, tying off OpenCA here, we have the 3 categories in level 3. Again, read this in your spare time. It's on my blog. You can read it in detail. But it goes through in a very detailed fashion what you can expect from each pillar there within the level 3 distinguished architect path. It's very interesting. I pulled this information together from the Open Group site, so there's not any of Mike Walker's own unique opinion in here. This is all pulled and actually verified by the Open Group, so you can trust this content that it's accurate. So let's move to the call to action here. Action really is to ask and learn. So I've briefly glazed over to the right-hand side of the Q&A panel. There's lots of questions. That's great. You're asking, wanting more information, but also navigate this frame. If it makes sense, go to the next level about these certifications, whether it be the Open Group or anybody else. This is about you as enterprise architects. If you're already certified, be a mentor. I mentor 4 people in any given quarter. I think the important thing to do, it's actually a question that I ask and that the Open Group asks when you become OpenCA certified is that, are you mentoring anybody? It's important to our profession that you pass on that knowledge and you make it easier for folks to become certified. Certified, I'll be very honest. I was sketching the enterprise architecture certification path because it just wasn't mature yet. There was too much conflict. But now a point in the industry where things are really starting to coalesce and the noise is starting to settle, and now's a good time to start on this path. So I went and became certified because I thought it was the right thing to do based on the level of maturity of the industry. So I encourage it for you as well if it makes sense for where you want to go. And so this really breaks down into two key categories. If you want your competency or want to add skills to your virtual toolbox. Now, here's of links. You can find all the certification material on the Open Group site for the Open Group specific stuff, since we're on an Open Group hosted webcast, but also as far as the material that's presented in the slide, or slides. If you go to the Architect WAC certification, you'll find all the certification posts that are related to this presentation. The very specific post around Enterprise Architecture Certification Distilled, you'll see it there, and then also the Open CA program Distilled as well. One of the guys, I guess I'll turn it over to Q&A for the last 15 minutes here.
Right, Mike. Many, many thanks, and thank you, Steve, for kicking that off for us. Yeah, we have a few questions here, Mike. But just before I move on to the questions, I just want to reiterate to everyone, a recording of this whole event will be available from tomorrow. Everyone will receive an email. Will contain the links of where you can access that recording. So that recording will be available for people to view as they wish to in the future. So we have a few questions here already, Mike, so this is a good opportunity, everyone. If you do have a question, please do write it down either in the chat facility or the QA facility. We have a couple of questions here referring to your slide 13, which I think was your model, Mike. The first question with regard to slide 13, that's the one. It's from Tony Cooper, and he's asking, he saw an open report recently that said that the top 3 EA frameworks used respondents was TOGAF, PIAF, and Archimate. He says he can see that TOGAF and Archimate appears in your certification reference model, but where we place PIAF, that's PIAF.
So that's the if it's the Pragmatic Enterprise Architecture Framework, which I think is what he's referring to, that would fit within the foundational certifications. I've done a review of that specific framework about 3 years ago, and it's essentially a variation of TOGAF a lot of ways. So the gentleman is TOGAF certified himself, TOGAF 8 certified, I believe. I actually owe him a call at some point, but yes, it would fit within the foundational certifications because it's really tied to skills and not competency.
How would you contrast those 3, Mike?
How contrast? So if you take PIAF, Enterprise Architecture Framework, its specific goal objective is to make the enterprise architecture methodology easier to use. And so based on understanding of PIAF, that's really its ultimate outcome is to be methodology and a framework in and of itself very similar to TOGAF, but to bubble up and be more pragmatic. Now, what happens there, and when that happens, is you lose it. There's a bit of a continuum on specificity and generality. And TOGAF's mission is to be general purpose, apply everybody. More and more you layer on top of that, what you get something very specific that starts to lead down a path of being held into certain camps. So I've done a fairly good job with PIAF as far as keeping it still somewhat general purpose. Think of TOGAF as a platform that's on top of. Right? So it's meant to be very, use programming terms, object-oriented or modular or composite in nature that you can extend very easily and then swap parts in and out as you see fit. PIAF is a little bit more tightly coupled because they want to make it easier, so they lose a bit of that. Now, how you contrast that with Archimate, Archimate's really focused on the modeling side, notation, the description language, etc. These two things are very, very different. The scope of Archimate is very tight, very focused, whereas PIAF its aperture is wide open and it's focused on the enterprise architecture process.
That's great. Thank you for that. Just one final question on that model, and the question is from Daniel. He's asking, where would Scott Bernard's EA3 fit in that model?
So Scott Bernard's EA3, I'm not 100% sure how it fits in here. I would assume that it would fit more into the foundational certifications as well, but I have enough information on that to really give that a real credible answer at this point. What I do is I can follow up later and provide a response. So I'll write that down now.
Fine. We've got some specific questions about various other frameworks. We've got a question here from Ajit asking, is COBIT, that COBIT framework, of any value or help for enterprise architects?
Absolutely. COBIT, VIT, Distilled, these are all what I fit into the related learnings type of category here at the bottom, which I don't include in the core model. But it's great supplemental knowledge for us to understand, because enterprise architects, we have to understand the full life cycle of things. And so value management, that really should qualify things that we do. So from a value methodology and framework perspective, it's very important to understand things like Val-IT. With it, another great example of specific industries that are regulated to use COBIT. So we have customers that use COBIT, so we have to understand it. It all helps us understand when we architect our solution, what are the conditions in which we need to live in. This is very relevant to COBIT, but also ITIL. If you think about ITIL and making your environments service-oriented, it's important for us to understand what's going to happen next. We can't just build something, throw it over the wall, and hope that it's translated and people understand it. Appreciation can be empathetic of all these other disciplines, because ITIL maps really nicely to the operations world. C methodologies apply well to the IT world, more than, and you got MBA, Val-IT, etc. Those things apply more to the business side of the house. And so, us as architects, since we do have such a broad scope that we're architecting these enterprise solutions, we have a respect and empathy for all these other disciplines as well.
Okay, thank you. A question here from Venkatesha saying, I'm an IT architect with respect to infrastructure like operating systems, storage, backup. Which certificate would be best for him, Mike?
For those folks, I would, it depends on where you want to go. So if you want to stay within a domain architecture path, then suggest, really honing in on the CITS. There's great stuff there. There's some great stuff in the ISA Foundation and C2P world as well that provide very deep certifications around domain. Now, if you aspire to be an enterprise architect and look at these things in a hierarchical fashion, I think it's really flat. There's a role. The world just be all enterprise architects, or just be domain architects, or just be solution architects. Each role in the enterprise, and they're all very important roles. But choose for your career path, you desire to be more business-oriented, business-focused, and want to go down the enterprise architecture path. Then I would suggest is you start to incrementally build your virtual toolbox. Start taking some of these foundational certifications, get the experience. If you have the means, take a program like a Penn State program, etc. Up your level of competency, then go and take like an OpenCA type of competency-based certification. But it depends on where you want to go in your career. I hope so.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Action here from Sagi Cooper, and please forgive me for a pronunciation of people's names, asking, if I'm currently TOGAF certified, what steps do I take to get OpenCA certified?
Sorry, echo there. So essentially, the steps, it's get experience, keep your engagement, build your competency, download, get an understanding of the competencies that are required to become OpenCA certified. So you can go onto the OpenCA certification site, which is opengroup.org, OpenCA/cert, I believe. But the links are at the end of this presentation. Go take the self-assessment evaluation. Get a calibration on where you're currently at. Get a good basis on, okay, am I ready to take level 1 or level 2 right now? You might be. If not, it's okay. Understand what you evaluated on and try to teach yourself in specific initiatives or projects will help tune your skills. And it won't just be TOGAF that, well, it's good that you have TOGAF and you're certified. That's going to help you with your OpenCA, because it's going to say that it's not about TOGAF itself or any other certification, but it's more about that you have a repeatable and predictable way of performing architecture. So there, but TOGAF isn't the only thing you'll need in your tool chest to get an OpenCA either.
We've had a question here about Oracle certifies Enterprise Architect certification, and asking what is the difference between the Oracle certification and the certifications that you've been discussing this afternoon, Mike?
Of what I know, and I can't speak 100%. There's lots of things that they've communicated publicly on this, but since in this very tailored type of category, is that taking the Open Group certifications and applied them. So very similar to what IBM does, is that you have the base, which is OpenCA, and then you layer what one would refer to as the special sauce, which is the uniqueness that they provide, the thought leadership that they provide within their organization, or specific things that drive, specific skills that are required to drive their business or set of offerings within the Oracle world. So I categorize Oracle here. Same thing with Microsoft. Microsoft has similar programs internally. IBM does as well. All the big vendors do, because we really need a really finely tuned architectural set of resources. So we want to make sure that not only do we have a good base, whichever certification out of this mix and it's usually a mix of these things, take that also, and I'll put on our side, what drives for our business? What are we offering customers? And based on that, what can we layer on top? So Oracle does essentially the same thing. When you look at their methodology, essentially the modified crop circle, they took the TOGAF crop circle and then they customized it for their specific needs. Another example of a hybrid framework that's based on TOGAF. That answers the question. If not, I'll be happy to provide a more detailed or tailored response later.
Thank you. Got an interesting question here from Janet Brown. She's asking, are any experience-related prerequisites required for obtaining OpenCA certification? And she says, for example, if a capability/portfolio architect wants to position themselves to perform at the enterprise level. What do you think about that then, Mike?
So what I heard was, are there any experiences that are required to become OpenCA certified? The answer to that's the case. The answer to that question is most certainly. And that's really the heart of OpenCA, is it's really about how you've done your job and not what you have done. So ask the questions. You're encouraged not to just say, well, I created this great architecture. Look at it. Look at the picture. It's beautiful, isn't it? We're focused around that's a cool picture. However, talking about how did you get to this picture? Walk me through the process. What was your thought process for doing this? So very much based on experience. So that key differentiator when we talk about the how and the what between competency and skill is that the OpenCA certification really is focusing on your mental process for how you go about performing enterprise architecture. And so what I would do is I would encourage you to look at the conformance criteria on the OpenCA site and just peruse through that, and you'll see all the experiences that you need to have to become OpenCA certified.
Mike, well, I'm looking at the time, so we've done our hour, so I think we need to just end up with a couple of further questions and then call it a day. Just looking through here, a question here from Sri. OpenCA certified. Is there a healthcare industry-specific certification you're aware of, Mike?
Not There are lots of standards out there. Well, not standards. There are standards out there. But as far as certification for enterprise architects, not that I'm aware. A few industry-specific ones. The exception is the federal governments around the world. You don't even see a lot of specializations for the big industries like financial services either.
Thank you. Let's end up with one final question. We've got a question here from Woody Dunbar. He's asking, Mike, as enterprise architects, do you see the PMP as needed certification to go with the TOGAF certification?
No, necessarily. It's going to help you become a better architect to understand how to manage projects. So going through the ADM, the architecture development method, there's a lot of coordination that you do. There's a lot of management, stakeholder management, etc., that you have to perform. PM gives you a great foundation, a supplemental foundation to architecture skills. So what I say is it mandatory? No. Is it ideal? Yes. Within the OpenCA certification process, you will ask a question around project management. The competencies you must demonstrate. So if you have PMI certification, then that knows that you have the skills, and then hopefully what you're able to do is apply those skills and be able to demonstrate that through the OpenCA certification process.
That's great, Mike. Well, as I said, I think we ought to call it a day now. We're past our hour. I'd like to thank our speakers, especially Mike, but Steve as well, for presenting today. One will get an email tomorrow with the link to the recording of this event. If you haven't been able to answer your question that you've written down in the text facilities today, please don't hesitate to use my email. My name is Simon Lofthouse. Please forward your question to me. I'll make sure either Mike or Steve gets those questions and we can answer those for you over the next couple of days. So I'd like to thank you all for attending today's event. And once again, Mike and Steve, thank you very much. And on that note, I'll close the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you.